AirCover, what is it? Why is Airbnb so excited about it? And should you as a host be excited about it as well? We're gonna talk about it right now on the Fearless Investor channel. Make sure you're subscribed and comment down below with your thoughts on AirCover. Hey, welcome in, and if you haven't already heard, Airbnb released on November 9th this new thing called AirCover, which we're gonna talk about here in a little bit, and it's really just gonna be a great opportunity for you, if they follow through on what they say they're gonna do, to protect yourself. Now, I wouldn't just rely on AirCover. I would make sure you're insured in a lot of different ways. And we talk about that actually in my Airbnb Kickstart course, along with many other things on how you can master, automate, and scale a business. So make sure to go check that out at fearlesskyle.com. It's under the Airbnb tab. Now here's the problem. Airbnb, when I first got started back in 2015, all the way up to really like the end of 2019, I would brag to everyone how great Airbnb's customer service was. They would bend over backwards for you. They would refund you right away on things. Heck, they'd even remove reviews if you gave any sort of like, hey, this isn't true. And they would just be like, yeah, sure, no problem. Review's gone. But then this thing at the beginning of 2020 happened. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's called COVID. And all of this great customer service that Airbnb provided suddenly went from host friendly to extreme guest friendly. At the moment that COVID happened, all these cancellations started to happen. Airbnb was giving full refunds back to guests, and they weren't even consulting hosts. Now, there's a lot of different views on this. I'm not gonna go into that, but you can just see how suddenly Airbnb shifted right away. And there was this moment for hosts that we were like, wait, how much do you really have our back? Now, you can understand why this would, if you were not a host, piss off a lot of other hosts, but that was really just the start, guys. I bring all this up because AirCover, really, when we look into it right now, is going to be just a glorified version of what used to be called the $1 million Airbnb host guarantee. But when COVID happened, it turned into this $1 million host if we feel like it policy. I can tell you one specific example. Right when COVID happened, we had our largest claim. It was $1,500. A guy came in, broke 2 beds, broke a window, and we did our usual system. We got quotes, we got receipts, we sent pictures in, and then we submitted it within 14 days. Well, Airbnb just suddenly said, hey, another guest checked in before this, so how do we know it wasn't this guest and not this guest, so we're not going to honor that. I showed them straight to their policy that this was 14 days, like it says in the policy. Now, they had added some asterisk to it without telling anyone, and it really wasn't even in there at the time, that if another guest checks in, then you no longer can file a claim. So I was $1,500 out. I learned a lesson the hard way, and of course, I didn't feel like it was right from Airbnb, but this was just really some of the experiences that people were having. I've heard of tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage and liability that Airbnb did not cover because, again, even though their policy said it, even though they say the word guarantee, it really became more like a if we feel like it policy. Now, that's the problem, but here is the possible solution. And if it is what we think it is and what Airbnb is promoting it to be, it can be a huge balance shift from completely guest friendly to more balance between guests and hosts, and it's called AirCover.
10 years ago, Airbnb introduced the host guarantee, which offered up to $1 million in host damage protection. It protected you in the rare event a guest damaged your place or belongings during a stay. However, we heard from you that the process could be more straightforward and that you weren't always covered for some of the unexpected day-to-day incidents that might occur. So we're thrilled to introduce AirCover. It's top-to-bottom protection for hosts that protects you for stays booked through Airbnb. It includes $1 million in host liability insurance, which supports you and even those who help you host, like co-hosts or cleaners, and $1 million in host damage protection, which also includes reimbursement for lost income if you have to cancel Airbnb bookings because of damage caused by your guests.
So that's how the video started, and let's break down exactly what that $1 million damage and $1 million protection is all about, because that was exactly what Airbnb was promoting with their $1 million host guarantee. Now AirCover is covering $1 million of damage and liability, but the thing that I really do like about this that the Airbnb host guarantee did not offer was that if one reservation affects another reservation and you have to cancel or lose money from that past reservation, Airbnb will apparently cover that lost income.
And you ask for additional protection. So with AirCover, we're giving you even more, including pet damage. If a guest's pet stains a rug or scratches a surface, you'll be covered. Even if you don't accept pets and a guest brings one anyway, you're still covered.
The pet damage sounds pretty cool, right? But essentially, this was also part of the $1 million host guarantee. Now they're just putting it in writing.
You've also shared stories of times when your home required a deep clean after a guest checked out. So AirCover will reimburse you for everything from removing smoke odors to steam cleaning your carpets and rugs.
The deep cleaning and carpet protection is something that I'm actually very excited about because sometimes we have guests that stay for one night and a cleaning is very simple. It's very easy for our cleaners, but then someone will stay for 6 months and that cleaning needs to be a really deep one. But unfortunately, we don't have that flexibility with Airbnb to charge a different cleaning fee based on the length of stay. So this, adding in the deep cleaning for longer stays, really could help us as hosts.
And you told us that you sometimes don't discover guest damage until a new guest has checked in, which was too late to report it. No longer. With AirCover, you can now submit a request for reimbursement up to 14 days after that guest checks out. It doesn't even matter if your next guest has checked in.
So this was a big one, and honestly, my favorite part of what they released with AirCover, because like I mentioned in that story before, if you have $1,500 of damage, just like what I did, 2 broken beds and a broken window, you're supposed to be getting that place ready for the next guest and fixing that problem. Instead, when Airbnb with the host guarantee was telling you, hey, because you have a guest checking in at 4 p.m., you have to file this claim before 4 p.m. Now I have to struggle to get a glass person out there, a handyman out there, get quotes, get receipts, get links in 5 hours or less, which is already virtually impossible. And then I have to submit that to Airbnb before 4 p.m. If it's 4:01 p.m., because the guest is checking in then, it's no longer viable. With AirCover though, this is what sounds so great, again, if they follow through, 14 days. So now on day 1, I can just document with pictures, and then from day 2 to day 14, I can gather all my receipts, gather all my links, gather all my invoices from the vendors, and submit it in a reasonable amount of time. And honestly, this is the industry standard, so it's nice to see Airbnb catch up to this.
Finally, we always want to further recognize our Superhosts. So we're giving you priority routing and faster reimbursements.
So I'm still really skeptical about this one. We can say, hey, we're gonna pay out hosts faster and we're gonna pay Superhosts even faster and give them advantages, but until I actually see the rubber meet the road on that one, I'm still skeptical. But I've always thought, like, why does it take so long for these to get paid out? And especially, why don't Superhosts have more advantages like this? For example, better customer service, 2 different ways, getting your calls taken quicker than other hosts, and also higher level managers or case managers to be able to get quicker answers. If I'm smarter as a Superhost than your customer service representative and know the policies better, that's not gonna look good for us trying to solve issues with guests. So that's my call to Airbnb. Let's see if we can make that happen. So as you can see, I think AirCover is, again, a glorified version of what the $1 million host guarantee was, but there's still some very, while minor, they can be major changes that could really help this AirCover thing to help Airbnb get that reputation back to balance the host and the guests together. There is one still very glaring issue that I do have with AirCover, and it was the same issue we had with Airbnb's host guarantee. So there's this balance, right? When we have damage or theft in a property and this guest has the ability to leave us a review, we want to get our money, but we also don't want to get a bad review. So in the past, Airbnb with the host guarantee, you had to submit it to the guest first. They had 72 hours to then decide if they want to pay your bill or not, and then you involve Airbnb. What happened was anytime that you submit this to a guest, let's say they had a party, $750 is what it says is your fine on your site for having any sort of party. You send that to the guest, they get sticker shock, and what do they want to do? They want to leave a bad review. So what we had to do with those guests, and it was really tedious, was call them up, say, hey, we see there's a party, we have evidence of this, we want to work through this together with you, and then we had to find some sort of compromise and really like massage our way into making sure we weren't getting a bad review, but also getting a little bit of compensation. My hope when I saw AirCover was maybe we can just bypass the guest, go straight to Airbnb and say, hey, here's the situation, and they would pay it out and the guest wouldn't be allowed to leave a review. But it doesn't appear that it's that way. It seems that it's still the same way as in the past. You submit it to the guest, 72 hours later, you can then escalate it to AirCover and then they take over, leaving you vulnerable to possibly get a bad review from a guest. And I really think that's what's next for Airbnb. I'd love to see them take the next step on the review policy, because way too many guests that should not be allowed to leave reviews because they were horrible guests and should be banned from Airbnb are allowed to leave these reviews. It makes no sense. And we can even point straight to the review policy with Airbnb, and some of the customer service representatives still do not remove those reviews. So Airbnb, my call to you, start working on your review policy so that it is more fair for hosts. In fact, guys, if you agree with that, if you've had some bad experiences with the review policy and unfair reviews that have been left on your profile, do me a favor, comment in this video, let me know specific scenarios. Maybe we can get some more action on this video, show it to Airbnb, see what they do. But overall, I really do like the effort from Airbnb on this. They showed that they are seeing the problem, they addressed the problem, they're providing a solution. Now it's up to Airbnb to follow through on this and show us that AirCover really is the real deal. Also, not mentioned in this video that I think is exciting, two things. You can now add pet fees during the pricing and the booking process for guests. And number two, you're allowed to now upload internet tests on your actual listing, which means that if a guest has any questions about internet, is coming into town for work, they can now see it on your profile instead of you having to go to your home and take a screenshot of the internet test and then send it to them. That was quite a hassle before, so nice to see that we can now add that to the listing. All right, so what do you think about AirCover? Comment down below. Do you think this is the real deal, or do you think that Airbnb is just putting up a front? I would love to know what your thoughts are. And as always, make sure to go check out our website, fearlesskyle.com, and get into our biggest Airbnb Facebook group in the entire world, which is Airbnb Masterminds. Would love to see you there and adding value. For now though, go out, conquer the world of Airbnb. We'll see you next time.